All right, and so kind of the third topic that we've got to talk about is how to manage our space in urban driving, in urban setting. Okay, and so we've got a couple of things that we've got to try to figure out, right? When we're driving in urban setting, like I said, there's more points of conflict. There's more things going around us. There's more vehicles. There's more buses. There's more pedestrians. Okay, and so how do we manage our space, right? And so the first thing we've got to do, like I've mentioned a little bit before, is to look a little bit like to aim high, right? You know, that the distance that we're looking is kind of varies on the situation, varies on the speed, but really you should be looking at your target area. You should be looking at least a block, if not more ahead, kind of what you're seeing. But you've got to make sure that you're processing the information. You've got to make sure that you're seeing the stuff that is around you so that you're able to make adjustments as needed. Okay, and because that's what urban driving is. It's avoiding conflict. It's making the adjustments that you need to make. It's adjusting your speed and your position so that you can drive safely in this super complex web of other people, vehicles, and pedestrians, right? And so as you approach traffic signals, that's one place that you've got to really kind of be careful. As you're approaching traffic signals, there's a lot of things that can go on, right? First of all, if you see a red light, that means to slow down and stop, right? Okay, so if you're driving down the road and you see that a red light is dead, don't try to time it. Don't try to go, ooh, if I keep going at the speed I'm going, you know, maybe I'll get there when it turns green, and then you just fly right through, okay? Because anytime you have an intersection, what you run the risk of is that people are gonna run the red light, right? They're gonna think, ooh, the light's yellow, I can make it through, it turns red on them, yours turns green, you don't wanna create a collision, right? And so as you see a red light, begin to slow down. Before you accelerate through, make sure that traffic is clear, make sure that the coast is clear, make sure it's safe for you to do so, right? If the light is green when you see it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna have a completely clear path forward, right? Make sure that it doesn't change. The longer you see a light green, the more likely it is to change. Okay, we call it a stale green light. It might actually turn yellow on you. It might, you know, and then eventually to red. And so just because it's green, as you see it green, be prepared. The longer you see it green, be prepared that it turns yellow on you. There comes a point in time, right, where as you get close to the intersection, okay, maybe you're not going to be able to slow down and stop safely, especially depending on conditions. And so if you're coming along, it's green and it turns yellow on you, as you get there, you don't have to necessarily slam on your brakes to come to a complete stop, right? It turns yellow for a reason. So if that's the case, proceed through, okay? But do not, when it turns yellow, speed up to try to get through a stoplight, right? Use that as a caution, right? If you're too close, hey, I can make it. If you're far enough away, hey, if I can stop safely, okay? You know, the road's dry. I'm going the speed limit. I can safely stop here, but maybe you can't. And that's, as long as you make it through, if you can't make it through the yellow light before it turns red, that means that you made a bad decision, okay? And then you're guilty of running a red light, all right? So when you see the light turn yellow, you should stop, unless it's just completely unsafe for you to do so, okay? Covering the brake. Covering the brake is one of the tools that we use in any setting, okay? This is where, hey, something's going on. I might see brake lights a little ways ahead. I might see something going on. And so you cover the brake. You take your foot off the gas, right? And you get prepared. You slide it over, right? You do that. You do your movement. You slide your foot over, whichever one you have to do, but you get your foot ready to hit the brake. That doesn't mean that you want to rest the brake. That doesn't mean that you want to depress the brake and a little bit. You don't want to ride your brake is what we call it, right? Riding your brake is bad for many reasons, okay? One, your brakes are literally, you know, they stop you because of friction, okay? And so like if you are pressing your brake, if you're what we call riding the brake, that friction is heating your brake pads up. And then it's going to be harder for you to stop. It's going to cause long-term wear. It's going to cause damage, but it can also make it harder for you to stop. And so you want to cover your brake by putting your foot there to get ready, but don't press it yet until you actually need to, until you need to stop. When you see parked vehicles, okay, if you're riding down the road, there's another special situation that you've got to kind of be careful of. So you've got stoplights, you know that you might be needing to stop. You've got situations where you might need to to cover the brake to get prepared. Maybe that is that you see a red light and you're beginning to cover your brake to see like, ooh, am I gonna have to stop up there? It's a distance away, right? But the other one is how do you deal with parked vehicles? Like driving in urban settings, a lot of cities are gonna have parallel spots or they're gonna have angled parking spots on the side of the road. So how do you deal with that? Okay, one, you've got to constantly be searching, right? If you see a car, you see the brake lights turn on, then you see the reverse lights turn on, like, ooh, that car's about to back up, okay? Or, you know, you might see somebody walking to their car. You might see feet underneath the car even. What does that mean? That means somebody is there. Maybe they're going to walk out, okay? Or maybe you've seen a car pull off into a parking spot, okay? You see somebody in it. You see them getting some stuff together. You know that they might be about ready to open their door up, okay? But regardless, if you're driving through an area where there's parked cars on the side, your best bet is to give yourself space, to slide over to the left side of your lane as much as is safely possible, so that if something does happen with those parked cars, you're there, right? You have yourself a little bit more space. Okay. Like I said, look for brake lights, look for exhaust, you know, especially like in the winter when it's a little bit cooler, you can see the exhaust as it creates some fog coming out. Just be prepared. If you see somebody, they start backing out and you're too close to be able to stop, blow your horn. Okay. Let them know, hey, I'm here. Hopefully when you do your driving part, you'll see that you're not necessarily going to be able, when you're parked in an angle spot, especially depending on what vehicles are around you, you might not be able to see what's coming on the main road. Okay. And so beep your horn and let them know, hey, I'm here. And they should be able to stop, right? Get to the left. All right. Be ready to stop. Be ready to slam on the brakes. You know, be identifying if there's a spot. If you have to swerve, can you swerve safely? Okay. All of those things are things that you're going to need to do in situations with parked vehicles. Adjusting your speed. Okay. The speed limit might say that it's 25 miles an hour. It might say it's 35. It might say it's 45. But here's the deal. You've got to adjust your speed to the traffic around you. Now, that does not mean that if everybody is speeding that you need to speed. Okay. But if everybody else is going 15 miles an hour, you're not, gosh, the speed limit's 45. I'm going to go 45. And you're a maniac trying to weave in and out of traffic, creating conflict all around you. Okay. Creating hazards, potential wrecks. All right. If traffic is going 15 miles an hour, you know what? Slow down. All right. Go with the flow of traffic. You don't need to be weaving in and out and in and out and in and out. Okay. Stay within the speed limit. The speed limit is, it's the limit, right? It's the fastest that you're supposed to travel at perfect road conditions. If it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's icy, like if it's foggy, those are not perfect conditions. So you're going to need to slow down. If there's a lot of heavy traffic, I don't care if it's 75 degrees and sunny outside. If there's a lot of traffic, those aren't perfect road conditions. So you need to slow yourself down a little bit. Okay. Just remember that as you're driving, you don't really save a whole lot of time if you're speeding. The textbook that we use, it has a graph, and I know you're probably not going to be able to see it, but it talks about, if you're driving 10 miles, okay? So if I'm going 30 miles an hour, okay, if I drive 5 miles an hour faster, okay, I'm going to save 4 minutes. Okay, but the faster I get, the adding 5 miles an hour onto it, it actually decreases my time. Like, is at 65 miles an hour, okay, or 55, we'll go with 55, because that's what most of our rural roads are, right? If I'm driving 55, if I decide, oh, you know what, I need to go 60, I'm saving myself right at a minute over a 10-mile journey, right? So if I'm driving 30 miles, by only going 5 miles an hour faster, I'm only saving myself 3 minutes on the trip. Is it worth it? Okay, is it worth the potential speeding ticket? Is it worth the potential loss of life if you get into a crash because of excessive speed? Probably not. Okay, and so just remember that as you adjust your speed, you need to follow the speed of the people around you. Okay, especially in urban areas, what we see a lot of times is, it kind of like makes me happy a little bit when I see this, right? But I'm gonna have a car that's swerving in and out of traffic, it's doing all these things, and then we get to the next stoplight, and that car is still stopped at the next stoplight, right? It's still like, it might have flown by me and cut across and cut in front of me and done all this, but then like when we get to the next stoplight, we're the cars side by side. And it's like, you just wasted all of that, right? You just put people's lives in danger. You just put yourself in danger getting a speeding ticket, all to end up at the exact same point on the road at a stoplight, right? And so just kind of keep that in mind, right? Selecting the best lane. As you're driving down, you got to figure out which lane to get in. Get into the lane that has the least amount of conflict. Maybe the smoothest pavement, if there's 2 lanes and the right lane's got parking, get into the left lane, okay? Do whatever you need to do to avoid conflict, all right? The position, okay? Increase your following distance, right? Adjust your speed, all right? Get into another lane. All of those things are ways you can avoid conflict in urban settings, okay? If you're changing lane in any situation, all right, whether you're on interstate or whether you're in an urban setting, you've got to follow the process, right? All right, check your traffic using your mirrors, signal your turn, okay? Put your left turn signal on. All right, check your blind spot. You're driving, you're actually looking over your shoulder at your blind spot, okay? And then slowly change lanes. All right, one thing that I tell my students when we're driving down the road, there's a couple things you got to be careful of. When you're checking your blind spot, make sure that you're not pulling the car with you. All right, people have a tendency of doing that. And then you're getting, what if there's a car there, okay? So check your mirrors. You should always know what's kind of around you, what's going on, but check your mirrors and put your turn signal on. I have them do that about the same time. That way, if there's a car in my left, they know I'm trying to get over, okay? And maybe they slow down. Then once I know that I have a clear path, I'm going to change lanes. Don't slow yourself down as you're changing lanes though. Keep your speed steady. Now, when they say change lanes slowly, that means you're not jerking over to the other lane, right? You're easing yourself over to the other lane. All right, but make sure you're maintaining your speed, because if that car behind you has slowed down to let you over and you slow down even more, you might create a potential point of conflict. All right, then once you're in that lane, make sure you turn your turn signal off. Cancel your signal. All right, you don't want to be driving down the road with your left-hand turn signal going. That's like the boy that cried wolf, right? Okay, gosh, your left-hand turn signal's been on for 3 miles, and then all of a sudden you hit your brakes to turn left. Like, you don't want that to happen, okay? So make sure you're canceling your turn signal. If you're overtaking a car, you're passing a vehicle, okay? You use that same lane-changing procedure to get into the other lane, all right? Then, once you've passed the car, all right, you're going to put your other turn signal on, and once you can see the front headlights of the car behind you in your rear view mirror, you'll ease yourself back over into that lane. All right, be careful in cities when you're passing. There's a lot of things that might come about, right? Whether it's pedestrians or cross traffic, whether it's cars turning in and out of intersections. A lot of things can happen, so you've got to be really, really careful with it, okay? If it's a 2-lane street, okay, you've got to make sure it's legal. Okay, if there's double yellow lines, you can't do it, all right? And so also at intersections, you should not be changing lanes in intersections. That's illegal. You should wait at least probably, I think it's 100 feet or so from an intersection that you're not supposed to change lanes. That way, if a car is pulled up, they're wanting to pull out, they see they've got an open lane, they can. If you change it last second, you've created a spot that you might have a collision with them, right? Special traffic lanes, you'll see this in cities. You see it a lot, probably more on interstates, but these might be carpool lanes. In cities especially, you're going to see bus lanes. If you're not a bus, you can't drive in the bus lane. Okay? If you're not carpooling, you can't drive in the carpool lane. Okay? And so that's a way that cities try to work with these drivers to encourage these things.